take notes. So there's this, there's the conversation that is going on right now, with aside from the COVID-19, so we have this BBI animal that, the people we've mandated, to run the nation are talking about. And for me, I feel like the only bridges that we need to be building are the ones that reduce the inequality gap between the haves and the have-nots. By the way, it seems the bridges they seem to be building, that are quote-unquote supposed to bring us together, seem to be setting us apart, at least for those who understand that our problem is not really tribal, it's class. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, A rich Luo is going to oppress a poor Luo. A rich Kikuyu is going to oppress a poor Kikuyu. A rich Maasai is going to oppress a poor Maasai, and so on and so forth. But but someone is gonna tell you how your tribe counts and how your tribe is gonna, how it's our person and this is the person we should rally behind. All that is a lot of BB. Let me not just say the word. So, but for me, if I was to take that abbreviation, I would call it Blinding Blocks Incorporated. You're taking two blocks, incorporating them together to blind the people that we're together. But in the actual sense, man, we ain't. We ain't. It's us who are dying out here. It's the doctors who are supposed to take care of us who are dying out here. And the health sector, which is supposed to be, our place to run to, are in collusion with the insurance companies. And if you die of COVID, you're not insured. Your NHIF doesn't mean nothing. Your medical cover doesn't count here, right? So you go to hospital, sick of something else, they expose you to COVID-19 out there, you die out there, and you think you're covered. You ain't. And the health sector here is not, even the private hospitals that, we say are for the rich. Even the rich, if you have the money to go to a private hospital, you're not safe neither. Nairobi Hospital has trended severally, in the past couple of months for all the wrong reasons, and so many other hospitals. So, you might make some money that will allow you to, cross over from Kenyatta to Nairobi Hospital, but that doesn't guarantee you safety or health or medical cover. So if you think, not joining fellow Kenyans in fighting for the rights is going to cover you up, and hey, I'm sorry to disappoint you. So this is Blinding Blocks Incorporated. You're welcome. Since kalamashaka tafsiri ni maisha KE ni mazi, hatuko free. Na ukweli ni absent kwa radio na TV, unless you tune in kwa marginalized voices za wasanii. Kila siku increasing prices na grieving noises kwa jamii, na disenfranchised youth wakilishwa ndengu on the daily. Kibera, Mathare na D. Yoni baada ya father figures kugo missing in action, baada ya baba kufeign affection na kukataza usage ya raba na pill. So sahi mata kochoa mludhuli baada ya kutrade rubber for hills. Na in the same streets boys wanajifunza kwa men wakicompete na gova kusteal. It's cops and robbers all shooting to kill. Na bado cops ni robbers all but a few. What else is new? Pay-per-view kuna politicians na dirty deals. Nduru za kuaminika na kadhalika wazidi kukatika na bado hujabadilika. Nduru za kuaminika na kadhalika wazidi kukatika na mambo hujabadilika. Nduru za kuaminika na kadhalika wazidi kukatika. Seems the more vitu zina change, the more zina stay the same. Ni kama tuko 2005 tena. Tofauti ni oranges na bananas na share basket same. Wananchi shtuka ukisikia yet more referendum calls. Rival teams wakianza kubuild bridges and all. Most likely ushafanyiwa substitution. Public participation ni aftermath baada ya wao kumake decisions. Any further contribution kutoka kwako ni ornamental at this stage. Pages za constitution ni tissue kwa watu waliapa ku enforce legislations. Mission tena si kuchunga umati. Kamati na orders mpya za kufanya subtraction kwa haki zako na kumake additions kwa interest za corporations. Haki wangao lakini mlinzi ni wao. Commission iko committed kufanya omission ya truth. The confusion na contradiction venye kila mmoja na claim innocence, lakini bodyguards wako armed to the tooth. Looters wanatuzwa, lakini justice ni extrajudicial kwa slums. Moms wakiomboleza sons ni uncouth. Appointments na tenders kwa pretenders. Babu ya mtu bado ni youth. Employment naye ni competition, but hata na masters au qualify kwa contender juu baba ya mtu bado ana rule. Na rule of law iko above all but below some. So nini option? Kama uko bound kuuliwa kabla uone court doors. Juu ni rahisi kwa polisi kuchukua sheria in their own hands. Kama rais anazidi kuflaunt court orders in his own land. Wananchi shtuka. Kama mtu anaweza tumia pesa alikuibia kujilipia bail, shtuka. Casanova alipigia devolution debe akianza kulia imefail. Question ni mbona kuna unanimous demand for more funds but less transparency kwa paper trail? Shtuka. Mtu alikuwa against two-thirds gender rule akigeuka proponent of the blues. Your repercussion itakuwa baby book kwa beneficiary juu alia company muhesh diani kuogelea ndani ya ocean. Tumegonga 10 years baada ya kuspend billions kubadilisha constitution. Lakini bado tuko in limbo kwa preamble tukistruggle na implementation.
Msitu tofauti, nyani wale wale, siku nyingine mambo yale yale, hali tofauti, matendo yale yale, onyani wale, mambo yale na matendo yale yale yale.
Tunajivunia kwa democracy kwa katiba. Ratiba ina change time ya succession. Hereditary politics, statistics ikipigwa kusupport narratives za royalty, disloyalty. Elected faces ikivua mask baada ya kupeana false promises, nemesis. Beneficiary umaskini kupewa kazi kusaka solutions za eradicate poverty, puppetry. Venye strings zinakuwa pull, constitutional violations ikifanyika ndani ya corridors of power, twisted priorities. Taxpayer kutolewa kafara in the name of protecting property proprietary. Nation iko under auction to the deepest pockets. Kuchukua necessary loans kuanzisha phantom projects. Utadhani infantry venye economic hitmen wameshikilia vantage point ndani ya treasury. Executive na consecutive blunders. Legislature deprived of dentures imeshindwa kuputa stop to plunder. Judiciary ni tertiary venye criminals wanazidi kugraduate to freedom. Na freedom of speech, the illusion kama wana be tyrants ndo majority shareholders kwa media houses. No wonder kuna enough coverage public institutions kiwa rent down na jamii na spouses. For a decade later, watu Kibera bado wanangoja remedial housing. Land bill ilizamishwa ndani ya still waters. Na bado tunazidi kucreate IDPs na squatters. Justice ni taboo subject. But the main object of discussion kwao ni venye peace ni important. tumegonga 10 years baada ya kubadilisha constitution, lakini bado tuko in limbo kwa preamble, tukistruggle na implementation. Wananchi chunga, tusijipate tumegonga 10 more on top of hizo 10 tumepoteza, kama bado tuko in limbo na katiba tukistruggle kuitekeleza.
Msitu tofauti,
Nani wale
siku nyingine na mambo yale, hali tofauti, matendo yale,
yani wale
mambo yale
na
matendo yale.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dauphin. This is the Democracy and Human Rights Festival. We are back for the afternoon session on this third day of the festival. First 2 days we were at the Kenya Cultural Center. Today we are coming to you live from Alliance Francaise. We had a morning session where we had a panel discussing issues surrounding the access to healthcare, especially during these COVID times. And currently we are going to be having a panel moderated by, I think, a very famed political educator, Mutemi Kiama, who is also a medical doctor, and we will be discussing issues around how we can reduce the widening inequality gap. And that is a reality that Kenyans have been facing, I think, since independence. I mean, I think the only thing that has been consistent in this country, insofar as economics are concerned, and even just the access to rights, is that more and more people have been excluded. I would like to just recognize the support of the Swedish Embassy and Forum Civ for organizing this festival, and our partners as well, Siasa Place, Creative Spills, Sauti ya Wanjiku, and Power 254. I do not wish to take too much of your time because I know you are all very, very interested in seeing this discussion happen. And those of us joining from home, you can watch the stream live on Facebook, the Forum Civ page, and you can also follow the conversation on hashtag Democracy and Rights Festival. You can send in your comments or questions, and we will be having them directed to the panel through the moderator. And so I take this opportunity to invite Mr. I think the more appropriate title is Comrade Mutemi Kiama, who will make some brief introductory remarks and then invite his panel so we can begin the discussion this afternoon. Those in the audience, you can also prepare your questions because we will be coming to you as well, because we want this session to be very interactive and engaging. So, Karib Sana.
Thank you so much for the introduction. But I'd like to correct something. I am not a medical doctor. I'm a mwalimu. Mwalimu Mutemi Kiama is my name. Welcome everyone to this forum. Today we are going to be discussing, this afternoon there is, the question is how do we narrow the widening inequality gap, and especially in light of COVID-19 and the effects it has on our economies and our society. I'll be moderating this conversation, but this conversation will be heard by some very distinguished Kenyans who are advocating in these spaces of rights, democracy, inequality. And without much ado, let me invite them to the stage. First, we have Wanjeri Nderu. Welcome, Wanjeri. Wanjeri Nderu will introduce herself. Everyone will introduce themselves once they are up on the stage. Karibu sana. Next, we have Shujaa Omoto. Karibu sana, Shujaa. And I'll explain why I'm calling him Shujaa. Because we as Kenyans, we celebrate our heroes much late. Me, I prefer celebrating them when they are here. Karibu sana. And then we have Lucia Ayala. Karibu sana, Lucia Ayala. Are you in the room? Oh, okay, there is Lucia. Karibu sana. Next, we have Darius Okola. Darius Okola, karibu sana. Karibu sana. And then we have Comrade Sungu Oyo. Sungu Oyo, karibu sana. And last but not least, we have Comrade Hussein Khalid. Karibu Hussein. So I think there's a mic near everyone. Everyone has a mic near them. Because of COVID, I think some will share. Thank you so much, Karibuni. Thank you for accepting this invitation. And let's have a robust conversation. Asanteni. So I'm going to ask a question, and generally anyone can respond. We'll try to have everybody respond maybe 1 or 2 minutes, the first few questions. Then we'll get into the heavy bit about what to do about this issue, and then we'll have some much more lengthy contribution from each one of you. So I want to request that our panelists introduce themselves for a minute. Just tell us who you are and why you think you're here. What you do, why you think you're here. Thank you. You can start from this side.
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Sungu Oyo. I'm a writer and activist. I come from Kisumu. And I'm here because this is a very important discussion to have. It is a discussion we should be having every day.
Good afternoon. I am Lucia Ayala, an active citizen. I would like to refer to myself as a big fan of the Constitution of Kenya. And just like every other fan anywhere, when you come for the Constitution, I equally come for you. I think that's why I am here. I'm glad to be here today, and I'm looking forward to a robust discussion. And I'm glad that the faces in this room are young.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Darius Okola. I'm an economist by training. I'm a writer and a researcher. And why am I here? Because this is a topic that is right up my alley. It's something I write about. It's something I deal with extensively on a day-to-day basis. And I'm grateful that we're able to discuss these things in the open, in the public. Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm Wanjeri Nderu. I'm an activist, mother of 3, an active citizen, as Ayala likes to call us. I'm here because Mutemi Wakiama would not take no for an answer. He just called me and told me you best be here. But I'm also very passionate about the topic that we're about to discuss, being that a lot of the things I do, I tend to be in those spaces on these issues a lot.
My name is Josiah Moto. I'm a political scientist working with the People's Urban Settlements in Nairobi the last 30 years.
Good afternoon. My name is Hussein Khalid. I work with Haki Africa, an active human rights activist. By profession, I'm a lawyer. And I believe I'm here because I've been actively fighting for this particular freedom of equality before the law specifically. And for many years, we've been agitating and demanding that the state must treat all persons equally, irrespective of their backgrounds. So I believe that's why Mutemi has me here today, and for MC also. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those introductions. I hope the audience agrees everybody deserves to be here, and that we have a very good panel to be able to address this issue. Now, the issue of inequality is emotive for many of us. It's systemized, it's endemic, it doesn't seem to go away. And we've been discussing it for a long time. We've been trying to seek solutions. But what COVID-19 has done is what you would call enhance the sense of inequality and the state of inequality, and expose much more the challenges that we are having. And so I'm going to pose this question to the panelists. Maybe briefly, how do you feel, each one of you, you can think through it, maybe and express maybe a minute or two, that COVID-19 has enhanced or exposed the state of inequality in Kenya and the world. So I think we can start with Hussein, and then we come this way. I hope I've not ambushed you.
No, it's okay. COVID-19, I think it's been a couple of months now since March. And for us who have been actively working, particularly in monitoring the human rights situation, we can say that very, very clearly we've seen heightened levels of inequality in the country. But since we just have 2 minutes, maybe I can give one example. I was in the communities last week, and someone stood up and asked me, well, people are saying that now we can't go to the hospital because there was just an announcement had just been made at that by the county government that the Coast Provincial General Hospital, which is supposed to be Mwananchi's hospital. You know, anyone can go there and most of the services are free. They're just announced that before anyone is taken in, you have to pay a deposit of at least 20,000 shillings, you know? So they were saying, you know, first of all, medical covers do not work anymore, particularly for those who could afford. NHIF is not working anymore. And he came up with this theory that this is a way of cutting off the medical services, those who can afford, because they're saying that this disease is now widespread. There are so many people who actually need medical attention. And the best way to do it is to make it, you know, difficult for the local Mwananchi to get there. So they know if you have a medical cover, then many people have medical covers. So it's not enough that you have a medical cover because they would not be able to get those services. So these rules, these new ideas, these announcements that have been put forward by the government, they're actually meant to cut off majority of the population from accessing that very necessary medical treatment. And I sat and I thought, okay, you know, there are conspiracy theories and all that. But then again, why would a national government, for example, say no to NHIF? This is money from government to government. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, medical services, medical cover, they can do this. Why would a hospital that is primarily put up to serve the poor and needy in the communities have such expensive requirements for you to get medical attention? And it hit me, this person could be telling us the truth. We are already being, you know, we are already being pushed to one side or the other. The side of those who can afford $500,000 to get medical treatment, and the majority of us who cannot afford that. And this is a problem that we are seeing every other day. I know we've discussed health rights in the morning, but the inequality that COVID-19 has brought about, particularly in Kenya, is so massive. And if we don't do anything, I think we will have ourselves to blame in the near future.
Thank you so much for that very comprehensive response and illustration using a story. Comrade Omoto, you've been organizing for 30 years. Maybe you could also give us your thoughts around the question and maybe also weave in what Hussein has spoken about.
In 1979, before we were expelled as student union leaders of the University of Nairobi, we were taught by some of the best lecturers in Africa, Gugi Wadiongo, Michere Mugo, Anyang' Nyong'o, Dr. Apollo Jonja. They taught us something about citizen responsibilities. Two of them, I'm not going to mention names. That the responsibility of a citizen is to speak and act against social injustice. The responsibility of a citizen is to protect democracy and obey the law. The responsibility of the citizen is to pay tax. With BBI, 41 years later, I'm seeing new definition of citizen responsibility. If you look at Article 4 in the toxic constitutional amendments being floated around, Article 4 introduces a new set of citizen responsibilities that we have to obey elders, we have to obey parents. Parents must take care of their children, and children, when they grow old, they must take care of their parents. They're saying Wajiku must also declare wealth. That's a citizen's responsibility. And one of the most untidy, I'm wondering whether it's the same Anyang' Nyong'o who taught me. One of them is that the citizen must respect private property. Why do I say this? One of the reasons really affecting human rights in Kenya is the total disdain, total disrespect for economic and social rights. In particular, Article 43, a study conducted by KIPRA, the Kenya Institute of Policy Research, indicates that between 2013 and 2019, the government every year only allocated 2.2% to water and sanitation. But even that 2.2%, the 91% of 2.2% was spent on capital programs. They are all Kumare dams, the big dams. And even the little ones that remained was diverted to other uses by both counties and national government. So the crisis we have here is a crisis of budget injustice.
Same government that is telling people to wash hands. In
the same
Madare
government telling us
Kibra.
to wash hands has been diverting funds from the same people it pretends to serve. So I'll be as brief as that on the subject matter.
Thank you so much for that response. Wanjeri, Wanjani wako.
I think for me, what this period has shown is it's brought to the fore what we try to hide. We know these inequalities exist, but this is the time they have actually hit everybody generally that they exist. There are people who live in a bubble and they think that we are all almost on the same level, or it is none of their business what is happening on the other spectrum of society. But right now, many people have been forced to take attention, to give attention to what other people are going through. And I'll give, like, if you notice what is happening, it's just not just the health, the access to health, access to education, access to even technology. Some of these things that we take for granted, we are now realizing that we are not all equal and that there's a big problem. And I'm very displeased with this whole, for instance, of the issue of our children learning online and access to the technology for our children to even be able to do that. How many children are able to access that? How many parents are able to go to work? A lot of, I live in this estate where when this whole issue started, some of the estate members came up with some COVID-19 rules of who should access the estate and who should not access the estate. And the way I read it is because we have so many people coming from informal settlements to work every single day, washing our clothes or cleaning their cars. They should not be let in because they might come in with the virus. No one is talking about the virus perhaps being within us or even us bringing into the estate. So we locked out people from getting an income because we assumed this virus is, and I live near Kibra, so most of these people come from Kibra. And we had a heated argument on this space where I was asking, how is that Mama Mboga supposed to feed her children if we're locking them out, but you're able to sit with your laptop at home and work? We need to look for a way of safely bringing these people in. I mean, if we have to have something of washing your hands at the gate, sanitizing everybody who's coming in, anything, but do not deny them an income. And not everybody could get it. Oh, Wanjeri, you're putting us at risk. So what this thing opened up to me is how we are so comfortable, many of us in the spaces we are, that we don't think another person's problem is my own unless it really touches me. And a lot of them have this habit of jogging along Bagadi Way. So what happened a few weeks later? We had complaints in the estate, oh, please stop jogging along Bagadi Way from between this, during the day, during this time to this time, because they are mugging them during the day. A lot of the people complaining, in fact, 3 of the most vocal ones on that group lost their phones jogging on Bagadi Way. If these people had been given us, I'm not saying the estate is the only one that could have given them an income, but the lockdown also introduced the lack of access to income for some of these people. And if we, the people who can be able or who are supporting some of them, are the ones who are even entrenching their poverty more by denying them opportunities in the name of COVID, we realize that it also affects us when they're suffering. So it exposed a lot to many of us. And I'm seeing a lot of people waking up to the idea that we are one. If it affects you, it affects me. But it took COVID for that to happen. It is no longer somebody else's problem. It is our problem collectively.
Thank you so much. Before you go to that, Darius, I want to take that point back to Comrade Omoto. You work in informal settlements, Kibra included. How has this, what Wanjeri is talking about manifested among the communities you work with in terms of jobs, income, that kind of thing? Have they been impacted?
The deadly virus has basically made the situation worse. There are people who were not asking for money 6 months ago, they are now asking. We're talking about a community, if you look at surveys conducted in 2017 by UNICEF, only 23% of the community in the informal settlements were washing their hands with soap. But at Umade Trust, when we do our what we call focus group discussions, the number goes higher. There are people who just wash their hands because we're dealing with a challenge of soap poverty. People never appreciate that there's something called soap poverty. People don't have soap. And we have tried to link up communities with other organizations, UNICEF and others, to get soap. But the soap is used for washing clothes, washing utensils, hand washing, and it's used very economically. What I want to say is that the coronavirus has accentuated the problems in informal settlements. If you now look at what we call the face mask poverty, there are people, the police insist you must wear a face mask. And the police have made the people's settlements, they are what we call their ATM. 500 for not wearing a mask. But even people wearing masks, these ones of 10 shillings, they are washed for the whole week, so it's not even effective. Because face mask poverty, you are required to wear a mask and you wear the same mask for 10 days. It doesn't make sense. And the whole idea of social distance, we are talking about physical distance, not social, because at the urban people settlements, you can't have social distance. We can only talk about physical distance. It has made the situation worse, particularly now given with the police brutality, and the curfew hours has particularly been bad for expectant mothers. The towns have become villages, rural villages. After 10 o'clock, mothers have to rely on traditional birth attendants, TBAs, issues we saw 20, 30, 40 years ago in rural villages. We are back to that age because not many people want to go to hospitals.
Thank you so much for that context. Take it away, Darius.
I think one of the bigger ways that just to try and understand the impact that COVID has had on our incomes is to look at the numbers. Let's say by October, the number of poor people in this country, people who are not able to afford some of these things, people who were in need at one level or another, as Mr. Moto has mentioned, were about 23 million in a population of 50 million. We have about 12 million households in Kenya, 12 million families. Right in the middle of the pandemic, about 84% of the families said they had experienced a significant loss of income. That's about 5 in every 6 households in the country. As of about 10 days ago, when the latest economic report comes out, it says about 2 million newer Kenyans, as he's mentioning, who were not borrowing, but right now are borrowing. 2 million new Kenyans sunk into that level. That's 400,000 every month since April, And these numbers don't look by any, count. And there are a lot of policies that could have been put in place to begin to ensure that things didn't get here, And some of these interventions, whether on the health side of things, on the economic side of things, in terms of the stimulus and who gets the monies that are released, like the money that was released for artists, and apparently it was supposed to get to artists. There's a whole conversations around those kinds of interventions. And so in many ways, as we mentioned before, we're already in a challenging situation, given how much the government has borrowed over the last, let's say 6-7 years. This was simply a shock into an economy that had already, both for individuals, for households, for families, for people at work, in different spaces of work, we had already begun experiencing the decline in terms of income. And these are issues that have been
before
faced
COVID,
in many spaces. Yeah?
Before COVID.
Yeah, before COVID. You look at the amount of money the government has borrowed. Right now, we are heading towards 9 trillion shillings. Now, that's pretty much the size of the Kenyan economy, So we're heading towards 100% of our entire net worth as a country in terms of our borrowing, And these are big numbers. Sometimes they don't make sense to you as an individual, but there are real consequences. We pay for these things through fuel. We pay for it through bread. We pay for it through, all the other government services that we have to access. And they put these budgets in there. That's how they raise their money. So in many ways, you look at, let's say in the last 3 weeks, the deterioration of the shilling and how the government has not fixed against the dollar. We're at 110 right now. It was around 104, 103, 101 goes to 104. Right now it's at 113. Just by that depreciation alone, it adds about 300 billion to our national debt without borrowing an extra shilling. So these kinds of fundamentals in our economy have real impact on people's lives, have real impact on how, people's incomes and how people are able to sustain themselves. The 2 million people who in any other context wouldn't borrow, but now find themselves in a space where they have to say, give me money for this, or help me with money for food, give me money for that. Those are people you can tell they're already in a space where they're trying to do something themselves and they had opportunity, but now have to look up to the government or, well-wishers to be able to sustain themselves. At what point are we able to cap this and say, at this point, this has to stop, How do you begin to get these people back on their feet? How do you begin to get them back into spaces of opportunity, as Wanjeri has mentioned? How do you ensure that these people are able to get into, get back into these jobs that they had before? And the idea that you can, seclude yourself in this economy is really a myth, And even the idea of the curfew has nothing really to do with COVID. It has everything to do with the security element. And the security element is the fact that you've had this malfunctioning economy, a shock comes in, which is, the COVID. You do all these moves that, they pulled off since April, not really well thought through, borrowed a whole, lot of money under the pretext of, intervention, squandered all that money, and then you find yourself at a space where you're not able to make proper adjustments to the economy and try to get things back. So has simply exasperated the situation. There are still ways we can begin to, pull back from where the economy is at household level, at family level, at county level, and the national government level. And I think we'll come back to that later.
Okay, thank you so much for that very sobering but depressing. Those figures are usually depressing. If I could, you mentioned that most Kenyans cannot fathom what 9 trillion is, or even 1 billion shillings. Normally I break down 1 billion to being the kind of people you're talking about who are being locked out of employment earn an average of 10,000 shillings a month. And 1 billion shillings, if you spend 10,000 shillings a day, it will take you 273 years to spend 1 billion shillings. Yet every other day we hear billions have been lost and we don't know where they've gone. They've evaporated into thin air. And that to think that there are people who are actually running away with budgets that can fundamentally transform ordinary Kenyans who earn that. They live in this Nairobi and they earn 10,000 a month, and somehow they survive. They take their kids to school, they take care of their families, they take care of their extended families, they pay their rent. And I want to pass on to Lucia with that kind of depressing news, or rather, take it over.
Thank you, comrade. For me, it's the disconnect between government and the people that government is supposed to be serving that has been the loudest during this period. And it started right from the beginning, because when we were given instructions to deal with the COVID, we were told that it's the Public Health Act that has been invoked. Yet they sent the security and the defense forces to come and implement a Public Health Act. And that is the point where everything just went wrong. You don't do that. We are not under an Al-Shabaab threat. So why are you sending the security forces to us? Instead of giving us public health information, we were fed with threats, depressing numbers on a daily basis, and a shouting man in front of our screens, just saying a lot of nothing. And it has exposed all the other facets of weaknesses in our government. The education sector, the health system, clearly the rot has come out. For me, I just realized basically we do not have a government, we do not have leaders. The way this was handled, I was rewatching the COVID-19 millionaires last night, and a whole senator said the response from the Ministry of Health regarding their queries concerning COVID-19 protocols in the beginning, in the month of March, did not come early enough because the ministry did not have a plan. When you've been aware of a pandemic that's hitting the entire globe for 3 months, you'd think it's wise to have a plan of how to deal with it. It's not that we have a shortage of brains in this country. We don't have a shortage of energy in this country. Heck, we don't even have a shortage of doctors. It's just the government that has refused to employ them. And now, something that does not benefit this country in any matter is being prioritized over our lives. And it begs the question, if all of us were to die, if COVID was like Ebola and we caught it, and out of 50 million, the high-risk people, God forbid, the high-risk people all passed away, people who are able to vote. Who is going to vote for this referendum that is being forced down our throats? And clearly, if this does not show you that there's a disconnect, whatever government is doing and whatever it is we want them to do, whatever it is we ask them to do, or whatever it is they say they will do is not what they're doing. It's a hypocrisy of the highest order, and it makes me so mad. If it was in my power, I will just round all of them up in one room and whip the heck out of their bodies.
I'm sure many of us feel the same, that kind of frustration. Thank you so much, Lucia and Sungu. Based on what we've listened to, what would you say? How would you say you've experienced the impact of COVID-19 in rising inequality, knowing that the situation was even worse before, and also based on the people that you work with, where you come from, what is your view?
Thanks, Mutemi. Maybe starting from a personal point, I fell sick a month ago, and I had to go to hospital in Kisumu. And the doctor did all tests he possibly could do on me. I had chest pains and x-rays, blood tests, and everything. And at the end of the day, he couldn't find a problem. So he told me he suspected I had COVID, that I should go get a test. When I went to the public hospital, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital, they told me they had run out of reagents. Same to the district hospital in Kisumu. And so I called the county director of health and told him, this is Sungu. The doctor said, I need to have a COVID test, but your hospital say they do not have tests. He advised me to go to a private facility. I told him I cannot afford that. I don't have the money for it at the moment. He advised me to go home, quarantine myself, eat vegetables, and exercise. And I'm sure I'm not the only person who's had such an experience. COVID has brought out the unemployment problem in this country, which was already bad. We have millions more unemployed today. We have seen how the situation around the reopening of schools has been handled. Our children are at home. We saw reports of the social problems, how the COVID situation and the economic hardship is manifesting in society. Gender violence, our children do not have proper guidance, and they're engaging in all sorts of things. And what COVID, basically, if you look at how the state has handled the whole situation, basically it's the institutionalization of what you'd call madarao in Kiswahili. The state has clearly told the people that you are on your own, just from their actions, without saying it explicitly. We do not know how to handle this situation. And for many people within the state, this has instead become an opportunity to steal and to enrich themselves. And so while initially it was very clear that there existed criminal elements within the state, at this moment, all I can say is that the state, the Kenyan state, as presently constitutionalized, as presently constituted, as presently operationalized, is a criminal enterprise, because all that has happened during this period have been criminal acts against the people of Kenya.
Thank you. Before you put your mic down, I know your story about the COVID story. Please just complete it. How did it end?
I had to scare the guy a little bit. So I walked into his office and announced, and when he saw me, because I'd called him on phone and he told me to stay at home, he took off. He ran away.
You thought you had brought him COVID?
I thought I'd brought him COVID. So, which it's a long and funny story, but for me, the most damning thing in the whole situation was how casually those in positions of power, those who are within the state, including the healthcare sector, not our doctors, but for example, this director of health, the levels they could go to, I don't even know how to express it.
And in the end, he had you do the test so that he could prove you're not infected.
Yes, I finally managed to get it.
And you were negative.
I was negative, but the psychological trauma of thinking you have COVID and you cannot access a test and you are sitting at home for days, it can drive you mad. That's why I said, I'm not sitting here. If I have to go to this person, wherever he is, and try get a test.
And the reason why I'm asking, I've asked you to give that additional information is to illustrate the inequality. The reason you are able to access these county director of health in Kisumu is because it's somebody you know. What about those in Kisumu who don't know anybody? And everybody have spoken to my friends who've had COVID tests, maybe because they want to travel out of the country or something. They've had to talk to somebody they know. I don't know whether that's your experience. Maybe someone can comment. Because if you don't know anybody, you don't get a COVID test. And if you get a COVID test in a private facility, it's 10,000 shillings. The same amount you're talking about, what an average Kenyan earns. You know, so like generally, could someone just comment on this as we wrap up this question, this conversation?
That's true what you say about not accessing, because even when you have the money, they do not have enough kits or reagents or whatever to test anybody who can, even for those who can afford. A lot of people who can afford are walking into hospitals and being turned away because there's already a long list. So what they're doing is when you start feeling the symptoms, they're actually advising you to just go home and isolate. And most people have contracted it and it has gone through their system without them getting tests and it's been okay. I have a close friend. She went public with her condition, Cherotich say, and she went and got tested on a Monday and I was with her on Sunday. And when she was tested on Monday, she was found to be positive. We were masked, but we removed our masks to have a meal, to take photos, you know, the usual socializing thing. And the only way I could get a test is she was able, because of her previous employer, to go to IOM and get a test much, much cheaper than, I think it was 6,000 bob at the time. And she did her own contact tracing and informed all of us, you know what, this has happened. Before she went public, I am positive. And I think it's best that all of you guys get tested. And she did an email to IOM for those, you know, who feel like they had, personally, I never got symptoms. Probably I'm one of those who got sick and got healed. I don't know. But the ones who did and were able to go went because she was able to do that email and say, I have contact traced the people I was with in the last period of time. But no one tested positive, even for those who didn't go to IOM and went to private hospitals. But it took her to do that, even contact tracing herself, to be able to see where could it have come from. And when she went back, she remembered we had one of our activists arrested at Central. I think it was Betty Washiro. And people went to Central Police Station to have her out. She was one of the people who were there. And when she looked back, she figured the only place I was in a crowd that I could have gotten infected was at Central Police Station. So a lot of us out there are walking around with this virus. Somehow we are not manifesting the symptoms. But even if you manifested the symptoms today and you walked into a hospital, chances are, if you don't know somebody, they're going to tell you they do not have enough kits. And also we have this issue of you might go to a hospital and the tests that they give you, and you go 2 days later, the tests are different. And that, you remember there's a time they were saying Camry tests are fake and things like that. They're using different methods to test for this thing. There's nothing standardized. So you really do not know whether it was pneumonia you had, because pneumonia and COVID are kind of manifesting the same symptoms. So we have a very big problem in actually identifying who is COVID and who is not. We have cases where some people have said, my mother was buried in hospital ABCD, wrote COVID, but she had cancer. Those stories are there. And we have people who we buried at Langata who are older people who had other diseases. And the families are insisting our parent did not have COVID, but it has been written COVID on the. So the whole misinformation and the way the government has even handled, as Lucy was saying, has handled this from the first day, shows there's a problem with either we have a problem with, well, they're a criminal enterprise, yes. So maybe the miscommunication is deliberate to put us in a state of fear so that they can be able to implement their objectives, which is, for me, to steal more from us using this pandemic. We have so many billionaires that have been made this year. I was reading a report about these islands, the Dominican Republic Islands and St. Kitts and Ives, those ones. Kenya is one of the countries in Africa that has the highest number. This year alone, they've had over 3,400 applications for buying citizenship to those countries. Where were these people last year? So for you to buy that citizenship, you need to have a certain amount, a minimum of 200,000 US dollars for a period, you're given a period of citizenship, or
that's like That used to be 20 million. How much is it now with the depreciation? Like you need to have at least 20 million Kenyan shillings.
So the minimum was 200,000 US dollars to just get your foot in. And over 3,400 Kenyans have applied this year alone in the last several months. I don't think that's a coincidence.
So as we talk about inequality, we talk about poverty, we talk about increasing poverty as Darius has illustrated. There are others who are laughing all the way to the bank.
Oh, yes, yes. Oh, yes.
Khalid and then Lucia.
Yeah, I mean, I concur, and the situation, begs for answers, and this is something that we as a people need to question ourselves. And I think it has been said up, placement of priorities. You can't imagine the trials and tribulations that people are going through, yet the same leaders who are supposed to be helping people address this very pressing issue that they have before them. People are dying, particularly in the second wave. I think I remember during the first wave, people were asking, do you know anyone who knows anyone who knows anyone who has COVID? But during this second wave, I believe almost everyone knows someone who has died of COVID-19. And we are so much into this problem, yet if you look at the leaders, they are so disconnected, or they deliberately choose, to ignore what is happening and setting aside billions of shillings for a referendum. And if you look at that referendum, it's for whose benefit? It's not for you, it's not for me, it's not for Wanjiku. The primary issue in that referendum is the executive. That's the only thing they're after. Forget about everything else in there. They want a president, a deputy president, a prime minister, and so on and so forth. So yes, I believe that as a country, and I don't think it's a country, as the leadership in this country has its priorities misplaced because the people are not with them. And we need to find ways, I think has been said here, we need that anger somehow, we need to light it up. We need to spark that anger. Whether it's Dr. Mugusu or it's, something, we need to get the people out. We can't keep, every other day just complaining, lamenting, and then we let these people continue pondering resources that are meant for the sick and the poor. Dr. Mugusu, money, COVID billionaires are still out there. The EACC is now telling us they need international help to get those behind this. Basically, they're telling us, forget about it.
Nataka hiyo tenda ya kuleta international help.
Exactly. It just doesn't make sense. And
everything is an opportunity to make more money.
Yes, and for me, my disgust is in what will it take for people to say enough is enough? We've seen George Floyd and US erupted. We've seen End SARS, the campaign in Nigeria. We are seeing what is happening in Uganda. What will it take? Because if I need to sacrifice for that to happen, then I'm ready to do that. But we have to start thinking about that. We need to start organizing ourselves, because if we don't, then like I said earlier, we'll only have ourselves to blame. Our children are watching what is happening. And they will ask us, where were you when all this was happening? And we need to now go out to the streets and force that change to happen.
Thank you.
Just for me to, since today morning on Citizen Breakfast Show, we were with Eliud Wabukala, and maybe this can explain why people are not getting angry enough. And he came on air and he tried to tell us that Kenya has actually improved in terms of corruption. According to the index, international index, we've gone up six spaces, which is supposed to be something very, very good, And he said that when it came to the COVID millionaires, that they have finished a few files that are ready for prosecution. Now, when we have the head of the EACC coming to give us what I call the at least disease, at least we have this. It appeases people, and they get into a space where they feel something is being done. And when we come out and challenge that, one of the other guests who was there, a lady called Joy, said that it is not good to be negative. We should look at some of the gains. What gains? That we have gained 6 spaces and that a few files have been, and if you look at the files that have been, I don't know if you've accessed this, I've had a look at some of them, or some of the names. It's nobody among the people who you're seeing who should be prosecuted. It is this little to procurement characters who were just told sign here. We do not have any big fish really that is going to get Kenyans to a space and feel something is being done. But then we have him coming and telling us, imagine tunajaribu, imagine we are trying, that now makes our anger kind of, mellow down.
And again, that illustrates another level of injustice because when it comes to prosecution, the big fish swim away with all the money. And then the small fish, what we call KYMs, the people who sign those documents, who are just clerks basically, are the ones who end up being prosecuted. And in most cases, after 20 years, acquitted because the courts realize that they were not responsible. So that's miscarriage of justice. Lucia, please wrap it up for us.
So thank you, Wanjari, for talking about the at least disease. And that is a very big disease in this country because we are only advised to settle for the basic minimums. Just hatujafika hapo mali tulikuwa tunataka kuenda lakini tumesonga kidogo. We are somewhere. And it's the same narrative even with the BBI. They'll tell you, if it moves us 8 steps forward, I would rather go with it than stay where I am. Who said that we have to settle for the basics? We don't. We don't do that in our own homes. We don't do that when we're buying a pair of shoes. You don't go into a shop and then you look at the least attractive thing and that is the one you settle for. Why do we do that when it comes to our leaders? And the other thing is also broken public systems. My mother is a retired nurse, and when she talks to me about the state of hospitals in the 80s, in the 70s, in the 60s, man, I really wish I lived in those ages because those hospitals were nice. But then nowadays you go to a hospital and it's like 1816 and not 2020. You go to any public process that you have to go to. Who has ever gone to a government office in the afternoon and you meet this old lady seated in front of a computer and she types like kuku yenye inadona mahindi. You stand there for 15 minutes waiting for your name alone to be typed. It's exhausting. It's like we are regressing when it comes to public service rather than advancing in this technological age. And the irony of it all is that our president gets all these accolades of being youth friendly, of being tech savvy. Where is it? Because I really, really don't see it. And the fact that it is our taxes, whether you're employed or unemployed, ukienda kununua switi kwa duka, that tax is what is paying for this public service. The fact that you're sweating to get a service that you're not getting is supposed to enrage you. It's supposed to enrage you so much because you work hard to get these services and they're being stolen from you.
Thank you so much, Lucia. Thank you so much, everyone in the panel, for addressing that question. And I think we've also responded to some of the other questions that I have, which is good for the discussion. I want to give this opportunity to Comrade Javan, who's in the audience somewhere. I don't know whether he's ready to come and sober us up a bit with the spoken word. Then we will proceed to the next level. You can take a glass of water. You can take some water. Let's clap for the panelists. Thank you.
So even as we wait for the artist to set up, we've been getting some comments over the hashtag Democracy and Rights Festival. We have Mr. Songora, who has been following the conversation. I believe he's even here. He says the government is busy stealing money meant for health services. And of course, it goes to the question that Lucia mentioned earlier, that service delivery is regressing and she wishes she lived in her mother's era, which is a very, if we have gotten to a point where people desire to have existed 60 years ago because services are regressing, that is, of course, something that we have a poet, She, saying, true, the problem is from the root and our leaders should be accountable for the things that are happening in the healthcare sectors. We had a discussion earlier in the morning about the right to access to healthcare, especially during the COVID times. And I'm sure every one of us has an experience that relates to that. And we have, there's a big up to the panelists. They are saying that they are following the conversation and enjoying it. And let me just mention also that on the extreme left, or rather if you're watching on your extreme left, we have two visual artists, Kerosh and Dina, who are doing a live painting. These are artists who are involved in attempting to use visual arts to inspire social change. And so now I believe the artist is ready. They're going to give us some entertainment, and then Comrade Mutemi will continue with the discussion.
Thank you very much. My name is Javan the Poet, and with me is Yani Msanii. So I'm going to give you two pieces, but before tuende hapo nataka kuuliza nataka niwafundishe tu kitu simple Wangapi wamesikia BBI? Mmeisikia? Mnaipenda? Ni hesabu ya plus ama minus? Ni hesabu ya minus? Ah, nice. Nice. Manze. So inaenda hivi I was just thinking So nataka tushike hii part pamoja. BBI ni hesabu ya minus, juu ilifanywa minus, mwananchi kwa mind, mifuko zetu zikuwe mine kwa minus. Tuko pamoja? Tuko pamoja kweli? Panelist kwanza ndio watu tuko pamoja nao. Tuko pamoja BBI ni hesabu ya minus, juu ilifanywa minus, mwananchi kwa mind, mifuko zetu zikuwe mine wa minus. Tunapatana? So we are mines and they are mining us. We are mines and they are mining us. BBI ni hesabu ya minus, juu ilifanywa minus, mwananchi kwa mine, mifuko zetu zikuwe mine wa minus. Bado. BBI ni hesabu ya juu ilifanywa mwananchi kwa mine, mifuko zetu zikuwe bado. Until mfilio minus manzeni ma plus. Na hizo ma plus mnawapea. Wanatumaini. BBI ni hesabu ya ilifanywa mwananchi kwa mine, mifuko zetu zikuwe mine kwa minus. Ni kweli Tuko pamoja? Bado. BBI ni hesabu ya minus, juu ilifanywa minus, mwananchi kwa mine, mifuko zetu zikuwe mine kwa minus. Thank you. Niko na Yani Msanii, na hapa tunataka kuwapatia two pieces.
Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone
when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone, when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone, when we got lost and we got found. Kazi ya gani kublow holes kwa heads, na just si kuprotect ni contest ya nani anangusha wengi, nani anajaza meli, nani atashinda hesi juu systems ziko messy. Alisema shoot to kill, bodies all over kwa screen. Kama mbaya ndio tambos tunamaliza generation. Ama pea lawyer uniform, pea judge uniform. Mko wote kwa street tushiko investigate alafu kill. Familia za victims zilipie bullets pate pay rise. Ama pathology wa gavana moja wapate clients juu. Wewe na wewe si enforcer, wewe ni killer breed. Wewe ni killer breed.
Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found.
Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Land Cruiser zimegeuka has, kuferi body bags, forest grounds zimejaa body parts. Si watu ni animals kwa kila score pupu. Kushoot na kutoa bullets kwa throat alafu kwa media wanakuwa blast. Hakuna light kwa end ya tunnel liko closed. Hakuna justice kwa ear zake ziko post. Not with guns but with our voices tuta challenge your might juu. Wewe na wewe na wewe si enforcer, wewe ni killer breed. Wewe ni killer breed.
Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found.
Thank you.
Tuwape ingine? Okay, twende. Yeah, this piece is dedicated to everybody saying and not doing, Lazima tufanye. Kusema imetosha, si ndio? Kusema imetosha, Safi.
Kwetu vijana, knowledge is power. Let's be enlightened, tupende sana. Nasio za kulevya, dawa. So many fallen soldiers, juu ya life ya utegi. Imta tunangoja, because we want so many changes. Here and there, crime everywhere. Let's show some care to our siblings out here and learn to live together.
Tutasonga mbele, tukimonga mob bila action zote ni kelele. Tutasonga mbele, tukimonga mob bila action zote ni kelele. Tuna hustle kuwa sonko wakati kupata job na cash imekuwa so slow kama movement ya konokono. Mikono zangu hazifit in my pocket, juu zao ziko in kama charger na socket. Wanabonga mob kama product ya safu, ongea taarifu nataka change safu, utapata kura tu ndio arif. One nation tumelan, one lesson kupata change, mi na wewe ndio one mason. Wazee walisema penye nia pana njia, niko stage hata sijapata njia, naitishwa mia weird. Hatu hike siku hizi juu mountains zimecome home na presence za kuts. Hatuna kura, zile tunazo tunauza. Are we fools? Who's smarter now nikiwa njaa wanakula kwao. Life's good for them, wanatumia words kama wow. wanajenga nini? Barabara zimejaa potholes, mfuko wa inchi treasury, hiyo port iko na holes, siphon cash, vitabu za account zimejaa dash, ukiulizia swali utambiwa pass. Kura, jembe kula, bila kura hatutakura. Twende, hatutasonga mbele tukibonga moba, bila action zote ni kelele. Pamoja twende, hatutasonga mbele tukibonga moba, bila action zote ni kelele. One more time, hatutasonga mbele tukibonga moba, bila action zote ni kelele. Thank you very much, Javan the poet and Yani.
Thank you so much, Javan. Namsani. The name is? Asanteni sana. Asanteni sana. That is a very good introduction to our next session. I know we have depressed all of us with the previous conversation because we were grounding ourselves where we are. And for the next session, we want to try and sijui kama unaona kwa social media when you post something that is Uhuru Kenyatta kwa hivi, Raila kwa hivi, Ruto, unaambiwa mbona unatuambia na tunajua na utupatii solutions. It's like, usually I tell them I'm not employed to give you solutions because si mlichagua hawa watu na mnawalipa mshahara, si wao ndio wanafaa kuwa na solutions, na kama hawana solutions muwafute kazi. You're supposed to hold those leaders to account. But what we want to do is look at what we've contextualized, the inequalities that have been there, but have been accentuated by COVID-19, and ask ourselves as Kenyans, badala ya kusema ningetaka serikali nifanyie, what can we do? We're not saying we have the solutions, but we are saying we can find those solutions within us. And part of that starts with having conversations. So I want to request Shujaa Moto, and I call him Shujaa because recently human rights defenders from across this country recognized him and honored him as one of our mentors, one of the persons, as you heard, he's been organizing from, what is the name that we use to dignify, Shujaa Moto, to dignify the communities that live in the urban, what we call slums in Kenya?
People's settlements.
Use the mic. Use the microphone, please.
People's settlements.
Not slums, not Vitongoj, not informal settlements.
Yeah.
So he's been organizing in the people's settlements because those are the people. In Nairobi, if you talk about 4 million people who populate the city, majority of those people live in the people's settlements, isn't it? That's where most of the inequality is experienced. We've been here before. We've been in a situation where we have a government that is not functioning, a government, as Sungu has defined it, which is a criminal enterprise. This was the so-called Nyayo era. ERROR, Nyayo era. And Kenyans were able to pull themselves out of that situation. And I think Shujaa Moto, then you are organizing even at that time. How are you guys able to pull yourselves out of there? And is there hope for us, for the rest of us? Can we do something about the situation you are in that has been made worse? The situation of inequality that we are in, it has been made worse by COVID-19.
Thank you very much. Before I answer that question, maybe allow me to make 2 or 3 comments.
Please
First,
go ahead.
I'm touched by what Khalida said. The story of Dr. Stephen Mogusu is a story of inequality, impunity, and stupidity in Kenya. And we have lived with that since independence. This is a young boy.
Inequality?
Inequality, impunity, and stupidity.
And stupidity.
This was a young man who grew up in Kisii without fees. He passed his KCP with flying colors. He got many A's. And he couldn't afford to come to Lenana. The mother took a bus and came with him to Nairobi. And he managed to negotiate to get fees. So this is a story of many, many parents in every ward in Kenya. Bright children who can't access their right to education. The second story about Dr. Stephen Mugusu is he was at the campus for 5 years, like many other students. But like many, like in Kibera is a university settlement. There's so many graduates, but they're watchmen, some of them are working in pubs. And lucky Dr. Stephen Mugusu, he got a job not as a watchman, but as a doctor at the great Machakos Referral County Hospital in Machakos, where he was treated like any other laborer in Kibera, 5 months without pay. 5 years at the university, 5 months without pay. That is the story of Kenya, the story of impunity, inequality, and stupidity. The second aspect I really want is what Madam Leru talked about, the country of millionaires. When I was growing up, I grew up in Nyeri. I was at Nyeri DB Primary School, and I saw JM. And JM kept on, every time he came to our school, he used to come there during the Muslim holidays, Muslim holidays. He was talking about inequality in Kenya, a country of 10 million people and 10 millionaires. If JM Karaoke was to come back today, he would find a country, if you go by the Knight's report of this year, a country of 42 mega billionaires, people with 3 billion and above, a country of 10,000 millionaires, and 44 million poor people. That is the reality of our country. The last one, what we have experienced since independence is what we call the poverty of politics and the poverty of leadership. And you can't really get out of that matrix, despite all the organization, unless you sort out the leadership. I was privileged to be an actor on this stage. And thank you, Wasani. You have really challenged me. I acted on this stage, Patrice Lumumba. The last time I appeared, I've been coming to the French Cultural Center, but I sit somewhere at those sites. But I've never really stepped here since 1978, when we acted Patrick Lumumba. Patrick Lumumba was one of the great African leaders.
How many in the audience were born in 1978?
Patrick Lumumba was he wanted Congo to be free of neocolonialism and exploitation and oppression. And because of that, they killed him. They also killed JM because that is what JM Karaoke wanted in Kenya. So unless we resolve the matrix of poor leadership, we can do all the community organizing. I was just telling Khalid, I met Khalid when he was just 2 years in the service. I used to be a board member at Kituo cha Sheria. I've been around generally. And we have organized. We have gone for, I was at Occupy Parliament with Okina Boniface. I attended the first rally when Wakina Shikuku and Wakina Orengo were being tear gassed. We were among the watu wa mkono there running around generally. Kamukunji. But the more we organize, unless we occupy power, our organizing will be in vain. I'll be as brief as that. And so we have a challenge in 2022 to move away from the politics of ushenzi na kugandamiza wananchi na kuongeza wakina Dr. Stephen Mugusu wengine so that we can move on the path of liberation. That is what I can say. Incidentally, in terms of conclusion, we were expelled from the University of Nairobi because we're the first to tell Moi this Nyayo was nonsense. We told Moi, he called us to State House, and we said no. Which country does have an ideology called footsteps? Because Moi brought us peace, love, and unity. It's a tragedy of our times, and that's why maybe I have depression. That 41 years later, the people we were with are now the ones shouting Nyayo, peace, love, and unity. That is what BBI is. Peace, love, and unity. So what BBI is a neo-Nyayo dispensation, and we must resist. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shija, for that bout of wisdom. Let's ground it in some statistics and then projections as to whether it is possible. That is, this country is broke. We have no money, we're in debt. Is it all gloom, or is there anything? And I'm glad that majority, 3/4 of this panel is actually what is defined as young people in the Constitution. This country is yours. Sisi na Shujaa motto. We are living our donkey years, the extra years. What can we do? Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, amidst all of these, less than stellar progression we've made, 2 steps forward, 10 steps backward, there's still options. I mean, it's amazing how resilient we are as a people. It's amazing how hardworking Kenyans are. It's amazing how, given a little opportunity, people are able to make a lot out of it. And that resilience is part of the defiance towards how the state has often acted towards people. And true, there are a number of ways we can begin to push back against what is there. Of course, the government or the state, rather, is broke at this point. And going by the kind of policies they've been putting out there, you can tell there isn't much creativity in terms of the people who are supposed to be, providing leadership in that space. But then there are a number of ways we can begin to push back and provide better opportunities even for ourselves by engaging the state. And one of the ways is, it's very important, and especially for the civil society and the people in the civil space, to challenge the reintroduction of some of the new taxes that are coming up in January. It's, VAT is going back to 16% from 14%. Pay as you earn is about to go back to 30%. What is it called? The corporate tax is going back to 30%. Now, here's the trick. The government reduced those taxes by 17%, but the loss in revenue is only 3%, actually 3.4%, which means they can actually do without the tax increases in January. And I'm hoping that, because these numbers are out here, that becomes one of the ways we'll challenge the reintroduction of these taxes in January, and that we'll be able to stand up and say there isn't much to be gained from this, and there's much to be lost. And because of the space where we are as an economy, it's important that you do not reintroduce these taxes, because they're going to food, they're going to unga, they're going to bread, which is what the average monanchi, the wanjikus out here need for everyday sustenance. So it's very important right now that one of the key priority areas for the civil society and people in the art space begin to challenge the question of, the reintroduction of these taxes. It was announced, I think, 2 weeks ago. The other one is, and still on taxes, is the fact that we need to challenge the amount of taxes put on fuel in this country. Fuel arrives at the cost at around 40 bob. By the time it gets to Nairobi, they add about 6 levies and 2 taxes, which comes to about 71 shillings. By the time it gets here, it's 108, 109, going 111, which means for every liter of fuel that comes in at around 39, 40 shillings, they're adding 71 shillings in taxes. Now, the impact of that is not just on the fuel you're putting in your car, it's that everybody who uses fuel and sells anything to you charges you that extra. The person making bread charges you that because they're buying at that 108. The people selling you shoes, clothes, everything you want to build, the cement you're buying, the mchanga you're buying for your property, that 71 shillings, so you pay it over and over and over again. And it's one of those things that we need to challenge, that the taxes levied on fuel in this country need to come down. and significantly so, and use our different spaces to be able to challenge that. Paying 71 shillings on a liter of fuel that got here at 39, 40 shillings is ridiculous, honestly. I think we are the only country doing that kind of madness right now.
That's another Kenyan first.
Yeah, list of infamy. And it's something we can challenge. We have the numbers. It's not up in the air. We know which taxes are put on this. We know which levies are put on this. We know which duties are charged on it. And these can be challenged. And so that those two alone can provide a very critical reprieve for a lot of people. It will mean we'll pay less on rent, we'll pay less on fuel, we'll pay less on pretty much everything we need. We'll pay less on fare, we'll pay less on...
Just on that point, just so that you... There are people who say, I don't have a car, so...
Tumelipa fare tukikama hapa. Tunaenda home this December, you're carrying 4 or 5 people in your family and you're being charged 1,500, 2,000. If you're able to remove in excess of about 30 or 40 shillings, you'd find you've saved over 5,000-10,000 shillings on fare alone going up country and coming back in January. So you pay for it in everything. Hatuwezi hepa. Si watu wako na gari ni fare, unalipa ni hiyo
kununua peremende kwa hapo.
Ni chai ukienda kununua kwa hoteli. Mimi nikiona hoteli, I'm paying for this fuel, I'll pass it on to you. It's not my cost. Niko biashara, And when that happens, we end up paying excess for everything. And so we need to challenge that one. The other one is the fact that number 2 is on what is called black tax, which is the fact that there are 3 million Kenyans abroad, give or take. These Kenyans abroad, as I said, Kenyans are so hardworking and work spaces, whether it's in Qatar or in the US or in China. Kenyans send home about 25 billion shillings every month. And this money goes to their families. Most of it is not even passed through the state. Now, what happened is, just a bit, bear with the numbers, just a bit for context, in April, the moment the lockdowns were being done globally, they only sent home 14 billion. The following month, they sent home 30 billion. Way more than they've ever sent before. I don't think it's because they're making more money. It's because they're making more sacrifices, so they're able to send more money home. Ndio wase survive uko home. Let's say unajua move to my home 20 Gs or 30 Gs a month or 15K or 5K. Next month nasema ndatuma 10 juu mother nasema my bro amepoteza job yako home. Sis ako home. So inabaki umejifinya ndio get extra to my home. So they're doing it very sacrificially. But again, there's a big opportunity to engage these people because most of us ukiona friends Qatar, ukiona friends China, you read what they say, how our foreign missions handle our people when they're seeking help from embassies and some of these places. There's not much help they're getting from Gava. Ulijipeleka huko, utajirudisha. If something happens, huko ni familia na your friends to sort it out. That needs to change because the kind of money they send is not just for their own families. It also stabilizes the shilling. It's what will ensure this dollar doesn't get to 140, And that means they're Kenyans, by themselves. They're supporting their families here. They're also supporting this economy and how it functions. And so it's very important that we engage on that one. The third one would be land reform. One of the big things hatujadili nayo, especially shamba ziko ocha zile zenye hatujafanya subdivision. I mean, Sungu, you're from Kisumu. It's one of those areas, most of the land is still communal. Hauja divide bado, wasawape land yao. Some government leader alikuja 5-10 years ago akasema hii shamba imepeanwa to these people as inafai ku subdivided. The land is not subdivided. What happens is if hii land ingekuwa subdivided 5-10 years ago, if familia ipatiwe title, they could have used this title to develop this land. They could have used it to pursue a loan from a financial institution. They could have developed it. They could have gotten investors to get on the land. But because there's so much land in this country and so many families in this country that do not have papers at their own family lands, inakuwa hard waseku.
Is that deliberate or political?
I mean, it's just lethargy. I mean, unaenda ofisi, people are not there. You need some of these papers processed. It takes you 6-8 months. There are a lot of people who want kickbacks in between. And that, of course, affects. So unapata ini communal land, haijai kuwa divided, people are staying there, wamejenga, but there's nothing much they can do with that land outside of kuishi pale, you know. So there has to be a deliberate push again on the issue of land. I know the issue of land is way bigger than that. The amount of land that's been stolen, the number of land that's been grabbed, even here in the city. But more importantly, zile mashamba ziko within families outside of the cities, especially in the counties outside the central space. Those are lands that can be developed, that can, you know, the legal papers can be, you know, released for these families. And that goes a long way in giving a lot of these families agency, giving these families a level of independence where they're able to negotiate using this as an asset. And so that becomes one of the really big deals. The other one, of course, Lucy has mentioned, which is our public systems. You know, when you are paying taxes to take care of your public social services, public healthcare, public education, water, energy, security, and then you're procuring private services for the same, you're basically paying double. You're paying for public schools to function through your taxes, and then you have to take your kids elsewhere because these ones are run down. It means you're paying to sustain that one, but you're also paying for your kids to be in these, whether it's private schools, whether it's private water systems, whether it's private security, you're paying double basically. If we begin to push, and most of us, we are products of this. I mean, we've gone to public school, public secondary schools, public colleges, and in many ways, these systems have functioned before. It's not magic. It's not something we haven't seen. So a proper push on our public social services. It's important we demand more majirudisho mtaani. I don't understand why NMS inakuja na water bowsers mtaa in the name of, I don't even know how they justify that. And you're of our those pipes are working, you know. So in many ways, the moment I had to fight for public social services to function, in a mancha, we are paying double for what we need out of this.
Maybe I'll just work harder, make money, and nilipe guard wangu, ninunue 4x4, nichipe. Everybody digs a borehole in their home or something, like private solutions to public
problems. It rarely works because you're paying double. So the amount of money you could have saved if the public systems ingekuwa zina work, you're doing ingekupeleka cost your holiday. Yeah, but yeah, so it's important that we fight public systems to work so that you don't end up paying double, because for every private solution on Alipia in this country, there's an equal public solution, and you melipia through taxes and you get. It's that simple, you know.
Thank you so much.
And just one final one, and this one is on elections. Every electoral season and every election in this country, let's start with 2017. 51% of MPs went home, about 62% of governors, about 76% of MCAs, about 82% of women representatives. It means we fire these guys. So
Kenyans are, you know, we keep telling Kenyans so we keep firing them.
We keep firing them, but somehow the crew that comes back is, yeah. So it's important that we go beyond, because Kenyans do their job. Kenyans send these people home. The lifespan of an MP in this country is pretty much 5 years. You know, every 5 years, more than 50% of them are sent home by Kenyans. So it's important that we go beyond just sending them home to also ensuring that the people who replace them are people we really want there. Because we can actually make it 80% across board, you know, starting from the president to the MCAs and everybody in between, you know. And that will ensure that we are partly also able to begin to shift this country back. Yeah.
And that's echoes what our elder has said. We need to stop organizing and take over power. That's basically what you are reinforcing each other. And I think Khalid had also said it earlier when he called us to go to the streets and do something about it. Wanjeri, you spoke about what the way you told your story earlier on is basically what you've spoken about: private solutions to public problems. What is the hope? What can we do? What is the hope for Kenyans going forward? Knowing that serikali haitatusaidia, so what do we do?
I think we need to be deliberate about taking matters in our own hands. When some of us speak, we are told we are too militant, or we are, not keeping the peace. I mean, you're also on the list of what they call the enemy of the state. And some of these things that happen to us are things that we can't stop, but we have to be deliberate about stopping them. And it is about organizing in the right way, in the right spaces, with the right people. And that is one thing that we lack. We find that even the people who can bring us together, who can organize us, or even give us a space where we can organize ourselves, hardly are there for the long haul. So some of us are left as activists, as individual activists, not affiliated to any organizations, fighting as Wanjeri instead of fighting as a collective. And the reason we fight as individuals is because we hardly ever find ourselves in spaces. That's why I'm very excited about what your KLM is doing. And, we hardly find ourselves in spaces where everybody is aligned for the same goal. And I like to give the example of how when you take action as a citizen, even if you yourself do not benefit, or the larger picture is not seen, there are still changes and some ripple effects with the very little things that we do. Look at what we've done to Kenya Power. 6 people, only 6 of us. And we took Kenya Power to court. And they threatened us, and we were offered 300 million bob in bribe. Yep, openly.
To withdraw the case.
To withdraw the cases. The lawyer who was there before took money and he walked out.
Apollo
Mboya took the money and he walked out. And he went and told the case on behalf of Wakenya. You can't settle a case of 50 million shillings as an individual with an entity that is oppressing us. So we went back to court and we refused to take the money. I would be owning an island in yeah, but St. Kitts and those ones. But Kenya Power has been crippled. They will not admit it is us who have done it, but we've crippled them. Kenyans are moving to solar because they've realized that these guys are thieves. We have forced DCI to investigate Kenya Power. 150 billion shillings. The DCI admitted, Kinoti himself, that through the investigations, because of the pressure we gave them, they have discovered 150 billion shillings that had been stolen from us. Kenya Power admitted in open court that 10 billion shillings they gave Jubilee in 2017 had to be recovered by stealing from us through tokens and through inflating of our bills. We had this thing people would buy tokens from called Dynamo and Vendit. Who owns Dynamo and Vendit? The First Family and his people, and connected individuals. So
First Family in Uganda.
Kenyatta family, okay. No, I'm not scared to say it. They already know I feel nothing. And what you find is that, for instance, what Dynamo and Vendit would do is they had conspired with KPLC that if you send for your tokens at KPLC 88880, you don't get the token. You'd even go for 2 days. But if you use Dynamo and Vendit on the spot, you get your tokens. But every time you use Dynamo and Vendit, 28 shillings goes to Dynamo and Vendit from every transaction, where else the KPLC one is supposed to be free. But we stopped them. So 6 crazy Kenyans decided to take these guys on board.
People power.
And it is possible to do it. We can't do it all. I mean, we hope that somebody else will organize and take Nairobi Water. I did research in 2019 about the water that we drink, even the bottled water that we drink, the quality of the water. And you find even this water that tunanunua kwa supermarket is actually not good for human consumption. But KEBS just stamps it. The water that comes into our taps, it's not good for us to whatever. But what do these people do? They switch off our water supply, create water shortage, take the same water they're selling back to you in Bowsers, put it in Bowsers at Dagoretti Corner, there's a spot in Langata, and also in Kayole and all those places. The water is there. It's not sufficient, yes, we admit, but if it is well organized, it means each and every household in Nairobi can get water if properly rationed. But you'll find some entire estates will go without water for weeks because of that cartel. So if other Kenyans are crazy enough to take Nairobi Water or whatever water body is in their region to court, these people crumble, especially under public pressure, especially when it is they have a lot of pressure from, they really ogopa only. You see, the president said that alifunga accounts zake za Twitter and all that. He actually was getting, and I can openly say this, the dude was getting depressed. They had to get him, because he used to go and check himself, and nobody is telling him, we love you, Mr. President. This guy would just now swig his whiskey and black out because he couldn't handle the hate. And his psychologist told him, dude, Kenyans are going to kill you. And he got off social media. We did that to the president. So we have some form of power. People call us keyboard warriors. You call us keyboard warriors. But if our keyboard warrioring, or whatever word you want to use, is going to create even a little change, we are going to continue doing it. So different strategies have to be employed. I, for instance, love going to the street. I'm an addict of tear gas. But not everybody is going to go to the street. You get? Does that mean that we all have to go to the street to make change? No. We have this thing that, oh, if you're not in the street, you're not an activist. If you're not in, actually what I get, and this is one of the hindrances for me as an activist, is I do not understand the pain other people are feeling and other activists are feeling because I am not in the economic spectrum of the same, you get? That is now us fighting each other, which is nonsense. Do I have, for instance, to live inside Kibera to understand a person's problem in Kibera? I don't have to. So organizing, the way we organize also has little issues that we need to tweak for us to be powerful. And a few people will not do it. Many of us have to do it together.
So we need to systemize organizing our struggles and what you're doing. And I want to bring in Sungu as an organizer, as a community organizer, movement builder. How do we, Shujamoto has said, we need to organize differently, we need to build, we need to take over power. And you're a Pan-Africanist, you've been working across Kenya, across Africa. How do we, it's possible, yes, how do we do this? How do we unite struggles?
It's not an easy question to answer or to respond to. And before responding to it, just to bring out something that came to mind, I think it's a few days ago, the state announced plans to increase university fees and also to reduce student loans. And it's what I said earlier, the institutionalization of Madarao. The state knows the hard economic situation, that is if they are aware, and we live in the same country. But the state still takes these measures, and we know things like education, especially university education, are some of the few avenues that for many families, for many rural communities, their sons and daughters can use to escape from poverty, to escape from a life of degradation, and create something out of themselves. So just to mention that. But if I may speak, I think, first of all, when Javan was singing, I was nodding my head, and he said, days are gone when we got lost and we got found. I think our first duty is to understand the system and work towards its abolishment. And we must be very clear on that, because if we look at the colonial foundations of the state, we know the state was established as an exploitative entity, an extractive entity, and all these things. And the neo-colonial state that came after it, the neo-colonial state is a wondrous being. It has even, in many aspects, come up with more genius methods of exploitation. And we see them manifesting in different ways. And so the land issue has been mentioned. In the 60s, either late 50s or early 60s, when Kenya was getting independence, Kenya took a loan from the West German government, the British government, and I think the World Bank or the IMF, one of them, one of those institutions, a loan of £2 million to purchase land back from the settlers who were departing under what was known as the Million Acre Scheme. They wanted to purchase back 1 million acres of land and resettle those who had been dispossessed by that colonial enterprise and by the colonial patterns of economics. but we know in whose hands most of that land ended. It ended in the hands of Kenyatta and the people around him. That is the truth of our history. And so if we are to talk about the land question, we must start from that point, not forgetting what happened under colonialism, but in the independent state, we must start from that point. And if we are to talk about bridging inequality, the first thing is that the people must be able to produce. If the people do not own and control the productive forces, the land specifically in this instance, how do they produce? These are some of the fundamental questions which I think we really have to address as a people and as a nation. Look at ways in which Darius said you can use land as collateral to get credit or to get some loan to start a business or to do something. That could be one way. We also have communities which are very communal in their way of being and in their way of operation. For instance, the pastoralists, they want to use this land to graze and to build themselves economically. And so for me, this is the starting point of the conversation on inequality. And unfortunately, it also might be the most difficult point to start from because it is not an easy question to solve. The new constitution tried to solve it when they talked about land reform and what, but we have seen how the system and has acted on that, or rather not acted on that, because they know if you change the basis of production, then you change the whole power structure. Because
essentially you're saying those who are holding on to these big chunks of prime land control this economy or control capital, and then the rest of us, the majority, we've not gotten title deeds so that we cannot access capital, so that we cannot challenge their power.
Yes, that is part of the whole equation and a significant chunk of it, because political power exists in the service of economic power. And so those who ultimately have economic power are able to a great extent, control political power. But then we know the ultimate power rests with us, with the people. And so we've been talking about organizing, thinking about new frames of organizing. And for me, we have to be very clear that the only way in which we can defeat inequality in this country is if progressive forces come together and capture state power. Without that power, we will be having the same discussions we're having on inequality 50 years from now. I turned 30 at the beginning of this year, and I do not want to be having this same discussion 50 years from now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Sungu, because we've just, again, echoed what our elder who's been there before us. I think if you're 30 now, he started organizing even before you were born. And here you are on the same stage, fighting the same struggles. Hussein Khalid comes from the coasts. The land question and the coasts, I think, I don't want to contribute to it. You've been organizing there, you've been among communities that are labeled as terrorists and the insurgency at the coast, most of which is a result of inequality. Please tell us what you guys are doing and how you see us getting out of some of these challenges as we move forward.
Thank you. I think as we continue to ponder this question, we must never lose hope. I think as a country, we must always see the light at the end of the tunnel, because that is what will keep us moving. We cannot despair and say all is lost. One thing for sure is we cannot rely on government. We cannot rely on leaders.
This government
or this current crop of leadership in the country for us to realize that new Kenya, that changed Kenya. That is not going to happen. It all depends on us, ourselves, as the people, if we really want to see change. And good examples have been given here. Yeah, we've seen how the switch of KPLC has worked out. We've seen different at the coast. we had the Black Mondays movement for a couple of months, and we were successful in stopping the monopolization of the SGR. Because what they were actually doing is to tell us that anything and everything that comes through the port must be transported only by the SGR because we have a debt. That meant thousands of truck drivers were laid off, and any truck driver usually has three. Any truck you see on the road, there are three people who are paying rent, who are paying school fees, and it's not that it's unfair trade practice. No, we're just saying, let it be fair. Yeah. You can't have a system where you are forcing people, an economy where you are forcing people, even in the most advanced countries, where the rail system is the best anywhere in the world. People are still free to use trucks, to use whatever they want. If I want to put my goods on a donkey, for God's sake, this is a liberal economy. You have to let me do that. You went and inflated the SGR deal 3 times or 300 times, I don't remember. And now you want us.
The SGR in Ethiopia, which is electric and double truck,
yes,
cost about $1 million a kilometer. Ours cost $3 million a kilometer, and ours is one truck and it is not electric.
There you go. And you know where all that money went to. And now they want us to foot the bill when they know where they took the money to. So we said no, and we went to the streets, and at the cost, perhaps, people we are told to, that we are relaxed and all that. And we managed to get petrol station attendants, because it meant no trucks, no work at the petrol station. It meant those young boys who are washing the trucks as they are waiting. It meant Mama Mboga, who is selling food to the truck drivers. It meant the entire corridor, all the way from Mombasa to Nairobi to Mlolongo. All those towns were completely deserted because now there are no more trucks along the way. And this is the extent to which this government is willing and ready to engage in corrupt dealings without caring at all. So we were able to go to the streets with the Fast Action movement every Monday, the Black Mondays, and we managed to reverse that. Immediately we reversed that, and now we are seeing, there's competition. It's not monopoly of SGR. Now they've devised a new way, and they're saying KPA, which is one of the best performing parastatals in the country, is being merged, with the Kenya Railways, which is heavily in debt.
And it's one of the worst run parastatals in the country.
Exactly. And when they said there's collateral that has been put there, that if we fail to pay the SGR, they will take over the port. It was never going to be Chinese coming and taking over the port, literally. This is exactly what was planned. And they knew that this was coming. So now all the money that will come from KPA, since now these parastatals are merged, they're one entity, they're merely departments, it means the billions that KPA makes will now be transferred to
Kenya, to the dark hole that is Kenya Railway.
Exactly. So now it's another form. So now KPA, the money they use, they invest, they do all those sorts of things called CSR, will no longer be there. All that money will go now to the Chinese. And we're saying we can't have that. These are parastatals that have acts of parliament. You can't just sit down with the transport ministry and decide to merge them. In the minimum, you need to go to parliament and have those laws amended to allow for this to happen. But this is the criminal enterprise that we are referring to. This government, we cannot, and I repeat, we cannot rely on this government to do anything meaningful that will help the local people. This is a government that has been set up to only benefit a few individuals. Even the BBI, it's not for me, it's not for you, it's for them. And the moment we realize this, the better for us to have a new system. So we're saying we must have hope. We must never lose hope as a people, as a country. And moving forward, the telltale signs are there. If you look at, the Arab Spring, what happened before that. If you look at different contexts where there have been revolutions, the telltale signs are there, and we will get there. All we have to continue doing is pushing. Persistency, perseverance will get us there.
Thank you so much for that context. You want to say something?
No.
Just before, so as we are wrapping up because of time, we'll also give the audience a chance to ask some questions if the organizers will allow us. Just make your comment, and then Lucia, we've been, everybody has talked about this government will not do it. So what are we going to do about it? Well, which government is going to do it? And how do we foster that revolution and systemize the revolution?
No, I wanted to say that the NIS has actually given a very comprehensive report that Kenyans have rejected BBI. And if you have people in the villages, ask them how those signatures are being collected. Where we are back home in Murang'a, in Mogoiri, the assistant chief is working with a cop, going into every homestead and telling you, weka kidole hapa. Because even down there in the ground, people have rejected it. So they're trying to shove it down our throats, whichever way, how they're going to do it. Even these jokes, and then the Kenyans, we tend to cope with our issues using jokes. We crashed their website. But what did we do? We actually gave them signatures. We didn't realize that when you go there and draw a cow, before you get to the signature part, so you're giving your details, unless you're giving fake IDs that do not exist. Once you amend that cow there, or you say stupid, that is a signature. So some of the jokes we use to cope with the stresses also, throw us deeper into shit. Sorry for my language.
And again, that is the thing. Inequality leads us into that place. Ignorance, spaces of ignorance where we think we are doing good to ourselves and we're actually harming ourselves. When Jerry mentioned KLM, Lucia, what is KLM? What do we need to do to change? I think everybody has said this government is not going to do it. What do we need?
I think we're about 40, give or take. We have how many ministries? 22, 23?
How many?
Ministries.
We have, constitutionally there are 22.
22. Yeah. If I look around this room and I went asking people to give their areas of expertise in relation to the ministries, if I asked if there's someone here who's good at management or there's someone who's good at planning and organizing, I'm sure I'll get several hands, not just one. And that means everyone in this room is already a government, like tumetosha, like who else are we waiting for? So Kongamano la Mageuzi is a space that wants to capture political power in this country. Nothing moves without political power, we know this. But then the political power is in the wrong hands. I like using two examples. You hire a domestic manager, in quotes, Mboch, sorry for the name. You hire a domestic manager. And when we do this, we vet them. We want to know where they're coming from. Who is their mother? What kind of meals they eat in their homes. You want to check out everything before you bring this person into your space so that you can feel safe bringing them into your space. Now, you've hired this domestic manager and you outline their duties for them. You tell them, I leave at 8 a.m. You're supposed to be up at 5 a.m. so that you can make breakfast for the family, prepare the kids for school, do the laundry, iron it, clean the house, ABCD, cook lunch, make dinner for us. When I come back home from work, I don't want to go into the kitchen to start doing the dishes. That's why you're here to help me with that. So you've hired this domestic manager. 3 weeks later, you come home every day, there's no food for you. Vyombo za breakfast hadi za jioni bado ziko kwa sink. Wewe umetoka hustle, by the way umechoka, unapata vyombo zinakungoja kwa sink, nguo hazijafuliwa, mtoi akuchenjiwa diapers, akujapikwa food, and this goes on for 3 weeks. After the 3rd week, even if you're the most patient person on this earth, if you're not going to fire this domestic manager, please raise your hands up. Both of them. Good, we are sane. Now, 2 thieves come into your house and they steal. And they wakunyanganye simu, wachukue loan branch, Tala, KCB, Mshwari, M-Pesa, all those apps that exist as a loan. They rape your kids and your spouse. and they go. And they do this repeatedly for 3 years, and for some reason you let them continue doing this to you. And in the 4th year, one thief comes and tells you, bana, unajua ule mwenzangu alinicheza, so mimi nimeka mkutafuta job, nataka uniandike kama mbocho wako, ama shamba boy, ama security guard. If you're going to hire this thief, raise your hands up. Both of them. Great. So, none of us here is politically hypnotized, which is where the rest of the country is. We've been having 2 thieves in government, and now one of them convinces us that they can do a very good job at being our security guard. It's madness. We don't have to allow that, because that thief is the reason why we are in this mess. And this is what I call political hypnosis, and that is a disease a lot of us suffer from. Tumezoea kudanganywa. Most of our politicians have been in this space for over 2 decades, 20 years. It took China 20 years to move from a low-income economy to a major income economy. Now, what did they do that we are not doing? They invested heavily in education, invested heavily in healthcare, because when you have a highly skilled workforce that is healthy, they're gonna work very well. And then they also made sure that their citizens had adequate quality food and water. These are the 3 things that we are constantly denied. Ukisoma Daily Nation ya 1977, way before all of us in this room, most of us in this room were born, Pole Senior. You will see, Senior Kenyatta promised people tapped water, adequate food, roads. The same thing that Junior Kenyatta has promised us, the same thing that all these other politicians running around have promised us. Now, I want you to imagine this scenario. We are the people who give them jobs. Wanakujanga kutuomba kura, by the way. So the fact that they are in these positions, ni sisi tumewa employ. Ni tax zetu ndio zinalipa salary yao. So now these people have refused to work. We've accepted to tolerate it. And then to add insult to injury, wanakuja wanatuambia sisi vijana, manze bana, hii wheelbarrow na mkokoteni na ndudhi ndio imekutosha. Me, I have empowered you. Go ye forth and prosper. Now imagine denying this person your vote, because your vote is your employment to them. Hiyo ndio job yake. Imagine denying them that vote. That means they become jobless. In 2022, tukiwanyima hiyo kura, watakuwa jobless. Tukiwaeka kwa kona moja, and we take back all the public funds that they have looted and make sure wako level ya ule mse mwenye anaishi Kibra, same level. And then we start giving them wheelbarrows and mkokotenis. Is that person going to appreciate that as empowerment? Probably not. So vitu zenye wanatupatia ni vitu zenye hao hawezi tumia. And for some reason we continue accepting that political hypnosis. And we need to wake up from that. And Kongamano la Mageuzi is a space that has thought about all this. It does not have all the answers, but we've thought about the inequality, the fact that young people are not allowed to be in decision-making spaces, the fact that we are so good at creating pressure groups, and then we push for reforms, and then we let the politicians implement the reforms that they were opposed to in the first place. It's similar to carrying a pregnancy for 9 months. You know, with the cravings, now all the complications that come with a pregnancy, you carry it for 9 months. You go through the labor pains, and I'm told that is not a joke. You literally die. You know, you literally die to bring forth life.
Mother of 3.
And then after you've given birth to that child, unapatia mbweha uyo mtoto. That is what we keep doing when we ask the current leaders that we have in place for reforms. They did not want the current constitution because it is pro-people. They are never going to implement that constitution because implementing that constitution means they will have to jail themselves according to chapter 6 of it. Unaona Ruto akijipeleka jela. It's never going to happen. And this is what I want to tell us today in this room. Article 1 of the Constitution gives us the sovereignty. I like the fact that Wanjeri spoke about switch off KPLC. So I have a story with Kenya Power. I pay my bills and I overpay my bills just to avoid your mvutano. Now, you know, you're looking for a private solution to a public problem. So acha nilipe mingi ndo wasinisumbue. I did that. But for 18 months, Every month, I got my power disconnected. And do you know the excuse they were telling me is that my account number is registered twice. Now, anyone who's done a little bit of IT, which system registers one number twice? And it's the madness that's going on. And I got to a place where I was so frustrated because I was sent to someone who could help me. Na nikafika hapo electricity house, security guard manzi alifunga hiyo mlango akaniambia mdema wingi. I cried. I literally cried kwa mlango hapo. And I was like, I'm done. So I called Jerotich. Thank God I know someone. I called Jerotich. And we caused such a stir on Twitter. I think 5 senior people from Kenya Power had to call me and my mother to profusely apologize. Nowadays, stima ikipotea in my hood and I make a tweet, a response comes within 5 minutes. People power. People I don't even know on Twitter ensured that KPLC now know my name, and when I speak about a power issue, they have to respect. They have to respect it. And that should show you the amount of power wewe kama Mkenya you hold. And it brings me to this. Now, KLM is trying to bring together the struggles. We are aware that there's a lot of people organizing in different ways, and we cannot take that away from them. And it is important for them to continue organizing in their own different ways. I cannot tell Wanjeri to stop doing whatever she does to come and join me. I'm not saying our way is the best way. That is what we recognize as Kongamano. But we want to be an umbrella coalition whereby all these struggles come into one. Because we all want a better Kenya. It's the similar goal. We all want a better Kenya. We want shared resources. We want prosperity. You know, we want a better economy. We want improved livelihoods. And it doesn't matter in which context you're organizing. Inaweza kuwa issue ya school fees, ama issue ya maji, issue ya stima. All of those are valid issues. They are your rights. The point is for us to come together and find that common goal, which is a better Kenya, and find a way to move towards it in our diversity. And Kongamano has started creating that space. I think I'm the youngest, if not Wanjera. I think Wanjera is the youngest. And we have some of the senior members from civil society in the group. And it's a space where we learn from them and they learn from us. And this is a model that needs to be accepted all through. Because our government feels like, sisi tu young people tunakuanga too good for causing mayhem. You know, but then when you look internationally, young Kenyans are being recognized all over the world for doing amazing things. The other day, someone created an helicopter. There's a young man who came up with an entire radio station from somewhere in Siaya, I can't quite remember. But instead of the Kenyan government encouraging innovation, they will send KRA to go and request for tax. They will send sijui nani to go and harass that person, and then they just kill your creativity. And you know, for us young people, the stakes are so high. They are so high because this is our future. If we don't do something now, there will be no Kenya in the next 20 years the way we are going. If we continue sitting down and saying like, oh, politics is not my problem. Mse, hauko shule kwa sababu ya siasa. Hauna food kwa sababu ya siasa. Hauna job kwa sababu ya siasa. Na ni siasa mbaya. Na kama wende uko na hiyo right ya kupatia mtu job, pia uko na right ya kuchukua hiyo job back. Sisi si wenda wazimu, sisi si mafala. And we need to fight for our future, because what kind of Kenya will our kids come to find? Senior Moto have fought. They have fought for some of the freedoms that we are enjoying right now. Multi-party democracy, freedom of speech. The fact that mimi naweza simama na nipashe president na kesho niamke nitembee tao na mtu asinisumbue. That's a big win. And that is one of the things that we need to protect. We need to guard with a lot of jealousy. Because if you cannot speak out, kunyamaza tunaendeleanga kunyamaza ndo inapatia hawa wasee courage ya kuendelea kutubeba mafala. Msee anaiba mita 5 na bado anakuja pa kupretend nikawa yeye ndo ameteseka sana kwa hii maisha. Anajiita hustler, akitoka hapo anaingia kwa V8. Manzewe ni hop step and jump hadi mtaani na ukanyage mavi in the process. Nani fala hapa? So it's our time. We are the people we've been waiting for. Manze Yesu alishaka na akaishia. Harudi tena na akirudi tena ni story different. There is no Messiah who is coming to heaven. Yeah, there's no Messiah who's coming to solve our problems. We are the ones we've been waiting for. If you do not stand up, nobody is going to stand up for you because no one else understands hiyo kiatu inakufinya wapi. Tuliambiwa tuulize kiatu. Ni sisi ndo tunajua mali hiyo kiatu inatufinya. The fact that we are 80% of the population, yet laws zinakuwa made relate to anything at all in our life, manze. We young people. It kills me because government is supposed to be working for us, for our interests, but it's not. Now we are allowing them. We are actually cheering them on and clapping for them. Because wanafanya kazi tunawalipa wafanye manze tuacheni ufala. It is their work to build roads. It's their work to build schools. It's their work to give us bursaries. It's their work to manage funds in these countries. Let us stop praising and clapping for these nincompoops because they're doing their jobs.
So we take over power. That's a clap for Lucia. I don't know whether we still have time for questions. I'm asking the organ. Do you have time for questions? You don't have time for questions? 2 questions? Okay. Thank you so much. Let me thank the panelists for the presentation. Everyone has really contributed to the debate, and I hope we've had a robust enough debate. There's someone right at the back who's lifted up their hand, going to ask a question.
So just briefly, and then we conclude.
Thank you. Comrade Power. Comrade Power. Thank you. My name is Nicholas Songora from County 001, coordinating civil society, and also Director Manyata Entertainment CBO. Mine is to the comrades here. I always love hitting the nail on its end and be factual. Sitting here, I was burning, listening to each one of our panelists. But mine is what is the way forward. Because this narrative of we must be angry enough, inakuja tena tena katika kila panel, kutoka juzi tuanze. But I've been very keen, sijapata way forward. A practical way forward. What do we do tomorrow? Or the day after tomorrow? Is let us get banned, tuache ufala. Imenichoma. So pia mimi ni mshenzi, si ndio? Pia mimi ni imenichoma, imeniuma. It's true. We are clapping for these people. MPs wakijenga shule, we are clapping for them. They form meetings, we go, we clap for them. Si mafala, si ndio? Now, there's one thing and concern that I have, that you're not genuine as activists in this country. In a way that we are always ready to support other countries. We are very strong supporting our neighbor Uganda. And now Bobi Wine amepiga step. Bobi Wine anaenda kwa ballot, and the people are pushing. What is stopping our country from doing that? That is my question. What is stopping our country from doing that?
Would you like it answered by any particular panelist, or to any of them can pick it up?
If every one of them can answer that question.
You might not have that time, but so Anjeli, you want to try and respond?
I feel you, comrade, and that has been a frustration for many of us. In fact, I stand guilty of being one of the people who led the Free Bobi Wine campaign very vigorously online. And Kenyans are known for taking other people's problems. In fact, we are rated, in the world, Kenya is rated as one of the most vibrant online community. But I think what we lack, and I had alluded to it earlier, is that we do not have that connector for us. We connect over other people's issues, but we don't connect over our issues. Yesterday, and I'll give a good example, we when the Daktari passed the day before yesterday, I think, yeah, and some politicians, including Raila Odinga, came forward and said, you know what, doctors, you need to chill. You know, it's not just you guys who are dying, and let this BBI thing bring a solution, which of course we know is a fallacy. And instead of us discussing the issue, Kenyans went into, you're blaming the wrong person. So if we touch on Raila Odinga when he said he says something inappropriate, we should not be focusing on him. We should be focusing on the government. He is the government, literally. Just because he wasn't elected doesn't mean he's not in decision-making spaces in that government. And when he says something that deep in such a situation, he needs to be called out. But what happened? We got a lot of spin-offs that he's not supposed to take. We're not supposed to hold him accountable. But this, remember, does not just come from Common Mwananchi. Common Mwananchi, they know and they feel and they understand what he said is wrong. These people organize themselves. The problem with us is we do not organize. The politics and the political class in this country spends so much money. That Twitter that people ignore and call us keyboard warriors, they spend 200 million a month to keep people there to monitor what we are doing and create people, and narratives. All those narratives you see come from
paid hashtags.
Yes. They come from a room somewhere on Kiambu Road. I can even show you where those kids sit. There are several places, 200 million a month. But what do? Some of us do this voluntarily. We do not, are not paid to do it. People are paid to sit down and fight back. We still have not found that common ground that brings us together. And that is where the sad thing is, because we are still so focused on our individualism. A country can unite for Bobby Wine, but cannot unite to say Lucy Ayala for president. You get, and it's ridiculous, because somebody is going to look at Lucy, and Lucy's fear is going to look at her and go like, why not me? So I'm not going to support Lucy. Let me start my own grouping here. And I had said about it also the way when I talked about, you don't have to be in a space to understand that pain. We have that problem in this country. We are very good at understanding other people's pain, but we refuse to come together
and take responsibility for
yes,
our challenges.
Own.
You wanted to say something? Then Lucia. Hold on.
I think Wanjeri said most of what I would have said. But just to add that the system is well organized. And for a long time, the people have not matched the state in terms of organization. We must be very clear of the quantity or rather the volume of work that needs to be done before the people get to a point where they can rise up. People don't just wake up and rise up. There is work that has to be done at community level, at the places where we find ourselves. And the easiest way perhaps to start, in my opinion, which might not be the only correct way to do it, is to start from where we are, to educate ourselves within the household, within the neighborhoods, so that, for instance, if what happened with Wabukala on TV happens, where the state controls the media and these politicians control the media and they use it to pacify people in one way or the other, people can already read through that and then organize themselves or decide on a course of action. So there is still a lot of work to be done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Songu and Jerry. You are responding to your question. I hope it's adding value.
He asked, what do we do tomorrow? Don't just feel like you're good enough to be treasurer wa chama yako. Stand up for a position, stand up for a political position. If you cannot stand up for a political position, support someone who's standing up for that political position, someone you have faith in. And we know these people. Lakini tunakuanga na hii mentality ya, oh, ana pesa, ajakuja kutupea 50 bob. Let's stop accepting this money from these politicians, or accept that money. If you need food on your table, manze na mtu amekuletea so mbili, chukua. Lakini ukienda kwa debe manze, make a wise decision. Let's vote wisely. We know the kind of good leaders that we should have. Let's vote based on that. Tusikue lied to na hii lugha yenye mwanasiasa ako nayo na nini na nini. Also, when a young person stands up to speak against something, let's avoid bashing them. That is what kills us. We do not support each other. And that is very true. We are very good at supporting other people from everywhere else, but we are not good at supporting each other. And united we stand, divided we fall. And as Kenyan youth, we are so divided. It's painful. It is very painful. You stand to fight for the rights of your fellow youth, and they look at you like, huyu wacha apige kelele amalize kwanza, atachoka. And people actually tell this to me on Twitter, like almost on a daily. I'm even called, I'm now the certified public heckler, and I love the title because I'm going to continue heckling. It's gonna make sense some point. But let's stop bringing other people down because they're trying to do something in their own little way. Not all of us can heckle, not all of us can be politicians, but we have different strengths, and let's find a way to merge those strengths. If young people from 001 come to me and they tell me, bana, kuna shida hapa na nini na nini na nini, I would want to add my voice to that and help them out with their problems. And that is the attitude that all of us need to kind of have. When we pull together, we go far.
Thank you, Lucia. Hussein?
Yeah, I think the question was, what should we do tomorrow? And for me, we have the macro and the micro. For us to get to the macro, we have to start down here at the micro. And it's important for us to be clear of the overall goal. And the overall goal is state capture. And I dare say, by any means necessary. So you start at the micro. Start with your MCA. Start even with your campaigner, the individual who is campaigning for the MCA. Get the right people with values, people with integrity to take over. So from tomorrow, start thinking, looking around at the micro level, because at the end of the day, the goal is state capture. We want to get rid of all these hooligans, all of them. We don't want to, whether it's Uhuru, it's Raila, it's Ruto, Sijui Nani, all of them need to go. They need to vacate those positions. We want to see you and her and she in those positions. Because it reaches a moment when you say, enough is enough. So that message needs to go out there. So you start at the micro, change the very little that you can change. If we all do a little, we will all do a lot. So start there, change what you can, and that little you do, you move to the next stage. Once you've addressed the issue of MCA, you know who is organizing, who is planning what, you move to the next level. And you move to the next level, the senator, the governor, and eventually we will get there. And I believe for me, if we can do this as individuals, people who are patriotic, people who love their country, then we will get the leadership that we deserve. But if we continue lamenting, we continue saying, we need to do this and that, these guys, they have perfected the art of divide and rule. And that is what they continue to do. And we should not allow ourselves to play into that game. So for me, start at the community level, organize, look for individuals that you can work with, choose your own MCA. Why should you wait and look at the options that you have? And that is the problem that we have as Kenyans. We sit and okay, so who's going to run? Oh, it's Raila. Raila cannot run for another term. And we're busy discussing what they are planning to do. And we are not organizing our own selves on what we want to do. And for me, that is the holy grail. If we can begin thinking for ourselves, not waiting for them to do it, then I believe we'll begin seeing change in this country.
Thank you so much, Hussein Khalid. And I think it's only, I don't think we'll be able to take another question because of time, but let's allow our senior comrade who's been in this space for a long time and who has told us the kind of organizing we'll be doing in the past will not do it, wrap it us for us. Thank you, Comrade Damoto.
Thank you very much for that question. I think it's a question on behalf of everybody else. And also my apologies, I used a very strong language, stupidity. But I guess that's what Mwai Kibaki meant by upumbavu. So this is one and the same thing. Thank you for the question. I think the landscape in Kenya is changing. The era when we belonged to leagues and stables and boxes is moving. We just heard what Jerry is saying. There's a growing protest against BBI across the board. That's why it is being rushed, so that Kenyans vote before they know what they are voting for. And I agree with Khalid. The ruling class have mechanisms of staying on and sustaining themselves in power. But in Kenya, they're being dismantled. It is not lost. And for me, my parting shot is, there's before King Kaka and after King Kaka. That song wajinga ni nyinyi educated people more than our community organizers. And I want to challenge my friends, the artists here. You made my day today. For me, the best moment today was listening to you. Please produce more. King Kaka should not be the only one. Music influences, and music changes, and music overcomes information poverty. So as long as we'll have information poverty, we'll continue rolling across the same and recycling. So I challenge the poets. I saw my friend Dofan here. Please go into the airwaves and influence change and thinking. The landscape has shifted. It will never be the same. Wakenya wamechanuka. Wakenya wamefanya nini? Asante.
Let's clap for the panelists. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time, for making this time. Some who have, like Hussein, who has come all the way from Mombasa. I don't know whether we've done justice to the question, to the debate point, but I think what we've done is start a conversation. These conversations need to go on in different spaces. As Sungu has said, let's take them to our homes, our neighborhoods. Let's organize around the issues that matter to us. Change starts from there. And as Lucia has said, there are people who are organizing to take over political power and manage this country different. So look for those spaces, look for Lucia, look for Kongamano la Mageuzi. Inequality will only be tackled if we organize ourselves, both the normal organizing that we do, but also politically to take over power and change the things that need to be changed. Asanteni sana.
And thank you very much. Give them a round of applause. Comrade Mutemi, for that wonderful moderation. And I like how it ended on the question of the micro and the macro. And it ties very well with what Comrade Sungu said. We have to start in our homes, because even the frustration that Lucia was expressing about youths not caring, I mean, this is obviously, I mean, their upbringing did not perhaps, give them that kind of political education. But of course, it's never too late. Hope springs eternal. And that's why we are having these conversations. You have done it justice. Of course, your background, most of us, when we heard that you were joining us today, we knew that the conversation would be very enriching. And I'm happy that Mutemi, you forced Wanjeri also to
allow me to thank Forum Civ, yes, and especially Augustine for this opportunity to have this conversation also.
Yes, and we'd also like to thank our other partners, Siasa Place, Creative Spills, Sauti ya Wanjiku, and the Embassy of Sweden for the support over these few days that we have been having the Democracy and Human Rights Festival. And that concludes our session for today. We have some artwork behind the moderator there. This artwork has been done by some artists who perhaps could come on stage so we can see them as we close. Mr. Kerosh and Mr. Dina for the fantastic work. Sometimes, language has barriers. And, when you use visual art like this to inspire change, usually dismantles the language barriers that might otherwise exist. So as the artist account board for this brief recognition, just give them a hand of applause. And we are having other sessions tomorrow. You want to say something? No, they speak in color. And so tomorrow we have some session. We have a session on women human rights defenders in Kenya, the struggles, gains, and opportunities. So you can join us for that from 9 a.m. in the morning. We'll be streaming over Facebook. And thank you so much for the opportunity, for coming and lending your knowledge. I mean, this is the only way we can do this. We have to, the information has to get out there, and then perhaps that is just the first step, but we also should not act like we are messiahs. So we do the little we can, and we pass the ball to the others. So thank you so much at home for following the conversations on #Democracy and Rights Festival 2020. And I will leave you with a visual of the artwork that Kerosh and Dina created. And have a good evening. A luta continua. Let's have a group photos so that Even the senior will remember that the second time he came, a picture of him was taken. So let's yeah, group photo. Very nice. Zinapigwa tu. Yeah.